Sarah Coates reporting for us from Paris there. Let's get more now with Paul Taylor, who's the visiting professor, senior visiting fellow rather, at the European Policy Centre. Thank you very much, Paul, for joining us. Great to have you with us. What do you think is going on here? Sébastien Lecornu reappointed just days after the government collapsed, saying himself his mission was over. I mean, what's going on? Was he really President Macron's only choice? What's the president thinking?
I think that there's a massive game of chicken going on here, where the mainstream parties, from the Conservatives to the centre-left Socialists, don't want to take responsibility for the nasty spending cuts and tax increases that are necessary to get the budget deficit down, as your correspondent said. But they're also scared of President Macron dissolving Parliament again and forcing them to have a snap parliamentary election in which they might be wiped out. So it's that fear that may just force them to support a budget put forward by Prime Minister Lecornu, and he will sort of probably form a government as politically neutral as possible, with technocrats, perhaps one or two old-timers who no longer, who have their political futures behind them and don't have ambitions for the 2027 presidential election. The French want contradictory things. They want stability, they also want another say, and increasingly, more than a third of them say that the far-right national rally should be given an opportunity to govern. They've never been in government before, and there's a feeling, well, everybody else has failed, maybe it's their turn. But on the other hand, bringing the far-right into power in France would scare a lot of people in Europe and around the world.
Indeed. And do you think that a snap election is inevitable? Is that possible quite soon?
Well, I think that both President Macron and his party and the mainstream Conservatives and the Socialists want to avoid that if possible, but it may come about anyway if Mr. Lecornu cannot find a set of compromises that everybody can be equally unhappy with but allow to go through in the budget. That means he'll have to make some concession on suspending President Macron's unpopular pension reform rate that raises the retirement age from 62 to 64 gradually, maybe just delaying its implementation for the next phase. Then it will have to be something that involves raising taxes, particularly on high incomes and possibly on inherited wealth. Something that's unpopular with the right but is a demand of the socialists. Then there may be a question of agreeing to some wage rises because, that's something which will be acceptable to the left and to the general public. But will all of that add up to a significant cut in the budget deficit? That remains to be seen. And the financial markets, as your correspondent said, are getting increasingly worried. We have a couple of credit rating agencies that are due to pass judgment on France in the coming weeks. And if the country looks like it can't get a budget together and the debt continues to balloon, it's now 114% of gross domestic product and continuing to rise. And France is now having to pay, for the first time this week, having to pay more than Italy, which used to be the sick man of Europe, to borrow in the financial markets.
Paul, really appreciate your input today. Thank you so much for being with us. Paul Taylor, Senior Visiting Fellow at the European Policy Centre.